Built for riders, not drivers. That's the slogan of Zoox, a California-based company hoping to revolutionize personal transportation. It's creating an entirely new autonomous vehicle targeted at the robo-taxi market. Just don't call it a car.
A car is, there's an inference that there is a driver, and especially a human driver. And from an engineering standpoint, the architecture of a car is around a human driver. Whereas in our robotaxi, there is no manual driving. A human cannot really drive it to transport passengers. So we want to make sure that that mindset, that shift, that distinction is clear.
The name Zoox is a reference to a marine organism that, like the robotaxi, depends on renewable energy and is able to maintain a symbiotic relationship with its surrounding habitat. Chief Executive Aicha Evans says sustainability is at the heart of what they do, but is keen to stress that going green means more than just one thing.
And it's not just about electrifying. That's not what sustainability is. More and more people are coming up the economic, social strata. They want to do stuff like everybody else. They want to have access to knowledge, good lives, shop, and so on. And the infrastructure is saturated, and we need to think about things holistically when it comes to sustainability, not just electrification, but it doesn't have to happen overnight, though we need to get going.
In this episode of Leaders Goes Green, I speak to Zoox Chief Executive Aicha Evans about the challenges of developing artificial intelligence, being acquired by Amazon, and making a driverless future a reality. Aicha, thank you so much for joining us on Leaders with Lacqua. Now, Amazon acquired Zoox back in January 2020 for what reports suggested was $1.2 billion. Since then, the company has revealed its Zoox vehicle. This is, I think, a rectangular passenger-focused vehicle with no driver's seat or steering wheel. First of all, how would you describe it?
We describe it as a purpose-built vehicle, but it's really a robo-taxi. That's its purpose. And essentially, it's about transporting people from point A to point B on demand in the most effective, cleanest, and most enjoyable way.
So why won't you call it a car?
Because a car is, there's an inference that there is a driver. And in our case, and especially a human driver. And from an engineering standpoint, the architecture of a car is around a human driver. The hood, so that you can see ahead of you, the windshield, even the seating arrangement, so that the people you're transporting do not bother you. Whereas in our robotaxi, there is no manual driving. A human cannot really drive it to transport passengers. So we want to make sure that that mindset, that shift, that distinction is clear.
So is there a piece of technology, Aicha, that you wish you'd have at your hands to make it better, to make it workable 100%?
No, time, if I could accelerate through time, that would be fantastic. Look, it's about testing. We can drive, that's not the issue. The issue is, and we follow the rules very well. I always say that when it comes to products that use self-driving technology, there are two metrics that are really important. Safety. We know that in the United States, on average, over 40,000 people lose their lives through car crashes. By the way, the pandemic did not help us. We actually spiked up to over 43,000. And those are mostly caused by the human driver's errors. You know, we're not at times the most disciplined. We're looking on phones. We're maybe a little bit debilitated because of, a couple of glasses of wine, or we're talking to somebody, and that causes errors. But computers are very good at not making those types of errors. There's another statistic that's really important, is that on average in the United States, humans collectively drive 100 million miles before causing a fatality. Just think about it. 100 million miles. And it takes a lot of testing, a lot of statistical math and forecasting to meet and beat that number, because we strive to be better than humans.
So when you focus on safety, Aicha, how much in advance can actually Zoox predict events that are about to happen?
We can predict things. So the way the AI stack works is, first of all, and this goes to our robotaxi and the sensor architecture and compute, it's important to maximize all of your chances to see what is going on around you and in your environment. And this is why our sensor architecture uses camera, LiDARs, radars and long-wave infrared cameras so that, for example, we can sense heat and something is alive. This is why we have them at the top 4 corners, so that at any point in time, 3 of those sensor pods are basically seeing you. And then the compute, being able to basically fuse all of that information and data on a continuous basis, and then predict what are the agents around us going to do potentially, and therefore how should we react. And we're constantly in that loop, and the better and the faster you can do that, and basically the more will be there. But that's not really the issue we're having with the testing. The issue we're having with the testing is what I call the millions of unique edge cases, last minute things that happen that humans basically are very good at dealing with. I like to say that you've been learning to deal with them as a human ever since you came out of the hospital, basically, as a baby. You're already seeing cars, agents, when do I cross, when don't I cross, all those types of things. So that accumulated knowledge is what computers are not very good at, but we're able to run a certain level of prediction.
But Aicha, what is this concretely? So is this reflexes? Is this, morality issues?
It's things that, for example, another human broke the rule. They came onto your oncoming lane. You could say, hey, you're not supposed to come on my oncoming lane. But the reality is that when your human driver sees somebody else come on their oncoming lane, they assess the situation and quickly either stop, slow down, go around something. It's all of those little mini maneuvers every time something different happens.
So you're not only trying to replicate the human mind, right? And I don't know how long away we are from that. It could be decades. Are you trying to make better decisions than the human mind?
We're trying to make, I don't know that they are better than the human mind, but for a robot, they make a lot of sense. So we're trying to make the kind of parallel applicable decisions so that we're moving people around. And so that means we won't necessarily replicate what a human driver would have done, but we'll make a maneuver or a responding maneuver that makes a lot of sense, is safe, keeps the flow of traffic, and also our customers comfortable.
Actually, I mean, you have such a complex industry that you're dealing with. It's AI, it's regulation, it's of course actually making the vehicle. What would you describe your company as?
We basically are a mobility on demand company from point A to point B, first for human transport. That business model and those businesses exist in the world today. The only difference is that when you're on an app today, whichever app you choose, what shows up is a passenger car with a human driver. So that's the business. It exists already. All we're doing is replacing the tool, meaning it's not going to be a passenger car with a human driver. It's going to be a robo-taxi that comes in. It's a more enjoyable experience. It's electric. Yes, it uses self-driving technology to move it, but that's it. So for those who think we're doing everything, we're not. We're doing the Venn diagram of what is necessary to accomplish that goal.
So how far away do you think we're from accomplishing that goal? You're talking about, for example, gathering information, the perception phase, right, which is cameras, radars, infrareds.
And LiDAR. Look, it depends. We tend to be very realistic about what's going on here. This is a beginning of a wave. When you look at all of the big industry transformation, they did not happen overnight. They took quite a while. So in a geofence area, we hope to be out there very soon. Our focus is being on public roads with our robo-taxi soon, but it will be in a moderate, small to moderate scale. And then the question is, our ability to be able to add geofences, to add cities on a continuous basis and in a way that is sort of good for customers, because there's no point in doing it in one tiny little geofence and not being able to go to a bigger geofence, because then the customers will be like, this is a gimmick. When is that coming to me?
Up next, evolution isn't always a smooth process, and Aicha Evans expects things will get bumpy on the road to the future of personal transportation. But she says innovation will find a way.
One thing we know about humanity and our history is that progress is unstoppable.
A fundamental change in the way we move around will require a fundamental rethinking of the way cities are built, especially when taking sustainability into account. I carry on the conversation with Zook's chief executive, Aicha Evans. When you focus on green or sustainability, how do you think this will change cities?
So, I think it will improve things dramatically. The fleet will be or is fully electric. That's a good thing. Second of all, today, humans, when we buy a car, we actually only use it 4% of the time. The rest of the time, it's parking either in our garage or in somebody else's garage or in the street and taking time. And so just from a mathematical standpoint, we're building more things than we need strictly for human transport. So we will make less things because when you're not using the robotaxi, somebody else is using it. So it's very effective and efficient. Now, I call it an improvement because we as an industry, and I mean overall, there needs to be a lot of improvement in the battery ecosystem, whether it's batteries themselves, whether it's the making of them, the using of them, as well as what happens on the end of life of a battery. And I believe that there's still a lot of work to do, but I think there'll be a lot of innovation in that space.
When do you think we'll have the first self-driving robotaxi in a big city that's also very eco-friendly?
It's going to be, I don't know, we don't get into dates at Zooks because we feel that it's better to show and then tell than the opposite as an industry. And, I'm saying an industry, meaning us, everyone included. We've made too many, it will happen. We've kind of like been either, oh my gosh, it's going to happen tomorrow morning. Oh my gosh, it's never going to happen. So we don't really get into the dates, but within definitely a more realistic time frame that maybe some people are quoting out there. I mean, testing has started for all of us. And so I think it's much sooner than people realize. The question will be the game of then replicating that to several cities, to an entire country, and then to several countries.
Were you frustrated, or are you frustrated now? When you started, did you think it would be quicker to have these self-driving robotaxis or slower?
You're going to out me. That's not nice. I actually think it's going about, I thought it would be even slightly slower. Even the ecosystem of driving, right, or with passenger cars, from horse and buggy and all of the infrastructure that comes around it to where we are today, it took a little bit of a while, right? And so I actually think that it's going at the correct pace. It's slightly slower, maybe than I expected, but it's about the pace. This is a big deal. This is a hard technology, and this is a societal transformation.
At the same time, we talk a lot about this environmental transformation maybe taking longer than we were expecting because of some components not being readily available. Do you worry for the car industry, for the industry you're in, that we just don't have the right components for the battery or for the self-driving vehicles?
I think we have the right component at this point in time. The question is, how are we going to stimulate the industry, academia, research, governments, regulatory, to pour a lot into this space? It's not just about having mandates. By 2000X, all cars will be XYZ. There's a whole infrastructure across all of the different vectors, including academia and research, that also has to come with us so that we have enough innovation for the scale that's going to be necessary.
And how you change people's perceptions. I imagine that you're worried that in certain countries, people won't want to give up their cars.
Well, yes. I mean, disruption is always interesting. There are a lot of countries whose economies depend on the car industry. And so I do worry about that. But I think that one of the mistakes maybe we've made in times of disruption is to not have engineering empathy for either the company or the country that's being disrupted. I think it's better to have conversations now, figure out how we manage through the transition together as opposed to good or bad. Because one thing we know about humanity and our history is that progress is unstoppable. I like to say sometimes for effect that if you could wake up somebody who died 2,000 years ago magically, and then drop them in the middle of New York City or Mumbai or Cape Town, they literally couldn't function. they wouldn't know what to do. And so I think that we need to be generous with each other and manage through the transition together, but understand that this is unstoppable and inevitable.
Yeah, even someone who passed maybe 100 years ago would be completely lost in New York City.
Exactly. They would be looking for the stable and the buggy and the coach and be like, no, you need to either buy a car, take the subway, take public transportation, or call, a mobility.
And always look at your phone.
Company. And by the way, where's your phone? No, we don't mean this phone. We need a phone that's a computer in your pocket. Do you know what an app is? So yes, that's why I think that we just need to be patient and drive through the transition together.
But actually, if we look at the last, let's say 20, 30 years, it's amazing the pace of change and how quick that was in the last 6 to 7 years. Can we replicate that again?
Oh, I'm confident we can. Look, prior to being in this industry, I was in the wireless industry, had a lot of fun with that. From, people forget, even the landline was an evolution, right? It used to be switchboards and an operator needed to be on the other end of that. And then from there, we went to cell phones. I remember being in a lab when we received the first text string on an LCD screen through GPRS and Edge. But then we were already working in research on LTE and basically Wi-Fi and all these things. And we were dreaming of people having the internet in their pocket and what that would enable. By the way, we didn't really think about apps or anything like that, but we just trusted that with the availability of the infrastructure, people would innovate on top of that. And boy, did they. And I expect the exact same thing to happen in the self-driving space.
Up next, Aicha Evans on what life is like being part of the Amazon family.
No, I don't hang out with Bezos and Jassy and Limp. And I mean, this is a job. They want us to get to market. They want us to make the progress we say we're going to make. They want us to build a great company. And that's really the basis of the relationship.
We all know Jeff Bezos has otherworldly travel ambitions, but his acquisition of Zoox in 2020 proved that the Amazon boss very much has his eye on the future of transport on this planet too. I continue the conversation with Zoox chief executive Aicha Evans. What's it like being part of the Amazon family? Do you get much exposure to Jeff Bezos?
I get this question a lot. It's pretty funny. Yeah. Look, I mean, first of all, we love being inside Amazon. We literally are grateful and privileged because this takes a lot of capital. There are a lot of really good success stories and also good learnings at Amazon about being long-term oriented and being part of creating a new industry and driving, to use a cliche, transformation. So we get a lot of good advice. It's been really great. And no, I don't hang out with Bezos and Jassy and Limp. And I mean, this is a job. They want us to get to market. They want us to make the progress we say we're going to make. They want us to build a great company. And that's really the basis of the relationship.
Did you always think you'd get here when you were growing up? You were always, from my understanding, very passionate about science and technology.
When you're a kid, it's funny. I wish I could get a redo because, man, I would be a lot more chilled. I knew I wanted to study and be in the field of science and technology. I knew I wanted to match it and mix it with what enabled things for humanity and society across all continents. But exactly what form that would take and whether I was going to make it, I often think about, when something bad happens to a human, I often think about, well, why them and not me? So no, I was a lot more stressed out about, is it going to work out? Then am I going to be exactly here? But I'm privileged and happy to be here. I feel blessed.
Is that the kind of advice that you give to, if someone very young were to come and see you and say, like, I don't know what the jobs of tomorrow, what the future brings, what should I study at university? What would you tell them?
So first, I always tell people, spend a lot of time with yourself. The longest relationship you're going to have in life is with yourself. Understand who you are. I can tell you that I don't know that I fully understand Aicha yet, but there are a lot of things I understand. Simple example, Aicha likes disruption. So do not put Aicha in charge of something that doesn't need to be disrupted, because she'll mess it up. And that doesn't make me good or bad. It just makes me different. So spend a lot of time with yourself. Second thing is understand your passions, because if something doesn't feel like work, you love it. I know that's a cliche. Then you'll be able to go through the ups and downs of it, and you'll be able to evolve with it. Third, I believe that the blend is the most important thing right now. I think not understanding technology at all is going to make it difficult if you want to be in that field or in sort of the field that drive things. But understanding empathy and humanity and blending technology with that is where it's at. I mean, AI is all about that at the end of the day.
Talk to me a little bit, if you had to choose between sustainability, right? If you look at Zoox, so it's sustainable, it's green, but this very advanced technology for driverless. If you had to choose between the two, which one would you choose?
It's a non-choice. They have to advance together. Now, we can make some compromises short-term versus medium-term versus long-term, but it has to go together. I mean, sustainability, and that's one of the things that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. It's not just about electrifying. That's not what sustainability is. More and more people are coming up the economic, social strata. They want to do stuff like everybody else. They want to have access to knowledge, good lives, shop, and so on. And the infrastructure is saturated. And we need to think about things holistically when it comes to sustainability, not just electrification, but it doesn't have to happen overnight, though we need to get going.
So what kind of leader are you?
An evolving leader, a learning leader. I place a lot of focus on people. At the end of the day, my job is to serve the people so that we can reach the goal. I can't do anything by myself. I already know what I think. And so what's more important is, how do I enable others? How do I understand why they think the way they do? And how do we get to the same goal? I think that I'm a little bit of a control freak, but I'm in rehabilitation. I've been on it for 15 years. That's probably the thing that's the hardest. And it manifests itself usually on Fridays at 5 p.m. And so everybody at Zoox knows that if you're going to schedule a difficult meeting on Friday at 5 p.m., you might need to manage through Aicha, because I'm just exhausted by that time. And my ability to control myself is not as effective.
Do you remember the hardest day in your career, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, I've had plenty of hard days. I mean, one hard day was at Intel. I was in a very, very, very difficult meeting and situation. I was angry coming out of that meeting, and I will always be grateful to Stacy Smith. He was the CFO back then. He gave me a call and he said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Not good." I use choice words, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And he basically said, "Look, first of all, I hear you. I understand why you feel that way. Why don't we do this? If Monday morning you still feel like sending that email, then send it. But hold it in your inbox until Monday." And needless to say, I didn't send it Monday. I learned a lot from that. Sponsorship, generosity, being proactive, managing your triggers, and so on. I would say that I've had some tough Zoox moments, especially around choosing what to do long term, but stay true to your principle and play the long game, not the short game. Because with Zoox, if we had chosen the short game, it would have been not good for the company in the long run.
Aicha, thank you so much for joining us today.
Francine, my pleasure. Thank you.